Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas. Today, we're jumping into a really powerful learning framework, something that's perfect for a world where, let's be honest, technology is changing everything.
So let's just get right to it with a question that's probably on a lot of our minds. I mean, when AI can literally know anything in a split second, what's left for us humans to learn, right? What does it even mean to be educated anymore?
So, to figure that out, here's our game plan. We'll start with the big question AI poses for education. Then we'll look at this cool answer called willful learning, check out its three-part toolkit, see how it's used in the real world, and wrap up with what it means for your future.
All right, first up, let's really set the stage here and talk about the challenge. A challenge that honestly, schools, companies, and probably you and me are all wrestling with right now.
You know, for hundreds of years, education was pretty simple. It was all about knowledge transfer, kind of like pouring water from one bucket to another, from the teacher's brain to the students. But now, in a world with AI and Google in our pockets, that whole model is just, well, it's breaking down. Being a walking encyclopedia isn't the superpower it once was, you know?
And that's where this great quote from Japanese educator Toshi Suzuki comes in. She points out that the real change, the real revolution in education, isn't about slapping tablets in classrooms. It's about completely rewriting the rules for how we learn and grow in the first place.
Okay, so if the old way is fading out, what's the new way in? Well, it all starts with a pretty big shift in how we think about learning itself.
And that new way is called willful learning. Seriously, think about that name. It's all about moving from being a passenger, just passively taking in information, to getting in the driver's seat of your own education. That word, willful, is so important. It's about having intention, a purpose.
And here's the core shift in a nutshell. We're moving from being these passive buckets waiting for someone to pour knowledge into us to being active architects of our own growth. The end game? To become our own self-coaches, right? To be the kind of person who can figure out what they need to learn and then go out and learn it.
Okay, that's the big idea. But how do you actually do it? Let's get practical and look at the toolkit. Because this isn't just some vague philosophy. It's a real system with three key parts. So the first tool, the very core of willful learning, is something called project-based learning. And right away, I want you to erase the image you have of that clunky science fair project from middle school. This is different. The big idea here is that your learning is always tied to creating something. You don't just learn for the sake of learning. You start with a vision, your own vision, and you work to build what's called a knowledge product. And that can be anything, really. A report, a business plan, a website, a piece of art, anything tangible that's actually useful to other people.
And this is a really important distinction. You see, there's also problem-based learning, where a teacher or your boss hands you a problem and says, go solve this. But with project-based learning, the motivation comes from the inside out. It starts with your vision, your goal, and that's where the willful part really kicks in. Okay, tool number 2. So you're doing these amazing projects. How do you keep track of all that growth? How do you show what you've learned? The answer is the portfolio, and you should think of this as your new living resume. It's way more than just a gallery of your greatest hits. It's the whole story, the process, the struggles, the aha moments. It's the story of what you made, for sure, but it's also the story of what made you.
All right, on to the final piece of the toolkit. This one completely changes the relationship between the learner and the teacher or the manager or the mentor. And this is a massive change. The expert is no longer the sage on the stage who has all the answers. Nope. They become more of a coach, a guide on the side. Their main job isn't to give you answers, but to ask you the right questions. The kind of questions that help you find your own answers and really nail down your own vision.
Okay, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds really good in theory, right? But is anyone actually doing this in the real world? And the answer is a big yes.
This isn't just some academic daydream. This framework is being put to the test in some really high-stakes fields. We're talking nursing education, where you absolutely have to know what you're doing. We're seeing it in big companies that need their people to adapt, in medical schools, and even in high schools, helping teenagers figure out what they want to do with their lives.
And check this out. Here's a great example from a nursing school. You can see how the projects build on each other. Students start small with a project about their own personal health. Then they zoom out to the community around them. And finally, they look to the future with a big career vision project. See how it's a journey? Each step prepares you for the next. And what's the goal of all this? Is to build what Suzuki calls action-oriented intelligence. It's actually a pretty simple but super powerful loop. First, you look at what's really going on. Then you think about it, analyze it. Then you make a call, you judge what to do. And finally, you act. That cycle, observe, think, judge, act, that's the fundamental skill you need to thrive in a world that's always changing.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together. Why does this matter to you? What's the big takeaway from all of this? So here's the bottom line. Willful learning isn't about trying to beat AI at its own game, like a memory contest. We'd lose. It's about focusing on the stuff that makes us human. It's about doubling down on creativity, critical thinking, working together, and maybe most importantly, being able to direct our own lives.
And that's really the promise here, isn't it? It completely reframes learning. It's not this thing you have to do, it's this tool you get to use, a tool for empowerment. It's about getting the power, the agency, to stop just reacting to whatever the future throws at you and start actually building the future you want.
So, we're going to leave you with a challenge. A question that's really the first step in this whole journey. For a minute, just forget about all the things you think you're supposed to learn, and instead ask yourself this. What is the one project you want to start? What's a vision you want to bring to life? Answering that question, that's where willful learning begins.